What are the biggest challenges or barriers to scale for ops heavy businesses today?
Yeah, I think I have a rubric that I use. I don't know how precise that is, but I believe that every 5x scale, the way you do things change.
Hi everyone, welcome to InsideOps. This is the first in a series of interviews that we're going to be conducting with senior leadership in product and ops at companies where operations plays a significant and critical role. My name is Amit. I lead go-to-market at Locale.ai. We're a monitoring, alerting, and incident management product. With us, we have Sohil, Senior Vice President and Chief Product Officer at LoadShare Networks. So the way we're going to do this is just a candid conversation focusing on the intersection of product and ops. When we talk about product today, most of the conversations are focused around the customer side of the product. But in ops-heavy businesses, the product plays a very critical role in enabling and building for ops so that these business models can actually be enabled on the ground. We're just going to have a candid conversation around that. So thank you for joining us, Sohil.
Thank you for having me.
To start off with, can you tell us a little bit about LoadShare and yourself?
Yeah, sure. So LoadShare is a logistics operating platform, right? So we are tech powered in the way that the logistics that we do is governed and managed by technology. From a logistics services point of view, we offer both intracity and intercity services, and we are of course able to merge the two together and offer end-to-end services to our clients, which include intracity pickups and then intercity movements and then intracity deliveries again. We do about 3 lakh odd deliveries a day as we stand right now. And what I do at LoadShare is I head product. It's been an interesting journey to come to heading product. I was not a product person till about 3-4 years back when I started dabbling in product. Previous to this, I was a strategy consultant, followed by a longish strategy stint at a healthcare company. Then I went to another company where I started doing some product work. And then from there, when I came on to LoadShare, I realized that maybe product is the right thing for me to be doing. And gradually there was like a bunch of things happened and then I just ended up fitting into this role.
Amazing how the journey unfolds and you just find the place where you want to be. I wanted to ask you, LoadShare is an ops heavy business, right? So what sets LoadShare apart in the way you run your operations?
See, at the core of it, all operations businesses are about processes, right? You have to be able to set up, manage, govern, administer processes at scale, right? So we at LoadShare, when we started, it's about 6 years back, we started doing last mile deliveries in the northeast of the country, right? It was a problem that was tackled because northeast was an underserved market, and the firm belief of the founding team was that if you're able to solve the problems in the northeast, then we can definitely replicate all of that in the rest of the country. Right, so that's where we started, and we've always had a great ops leadership team in place, which is always focused on getting the right processes and all in place. And now we've scaled up to a bunch of varied services that we offer. At the broad level, the services can be classified between hubless, which is sort of like a hyperlocal model, right? You're picking up from a restaurant, you're picking up from a dark store, etc. Or hub, which is like the e-commerce deliveries of food, right? Where a lot of shipments come and land into your hub. From there are run sheets and bill runs that are done, and then people go on and deliver. So on both of these now, we have a large scale, and we believe that that's because we've been able to, as we expanded from northeast into other parts of the country, as we expanded the scope of services we offer, I think we've been able to invest on the product and tech side as well, to complement whatever skills that we had on the ops. And we use tech very effectively now to be able to do all of that, right? In terms of processes, just ensure that they're set up the right way, they're governed the right way. And then wherever interventions are required, the ops teams know what to intervene with and how to solve the problem. I think that's what it is here. It's a disciplined business. You have to keep executing again and again and again. No one gives you any credit for doing something well, right? If something goes wrong, then all of a sudden everyone's at you. But that is what we have to prevent as the ops and tech team combined at LoadShare. We have to prevent things going wrong. And as things keep going right, then of course we build confidence in ourselves. The clients build confidence in us. And then from there on, like, we are in a market which is huge, right? So the scope is limitless. We just need to keep executing.
Yeah, for sure. And it's amazing, when you mentioned that you guys started from the northeast because that was a tough nut to crack. And if you can crack a tough nut and get your processes set there, then scaling to other areas is much easier.
Exactly.
So amazing to take on that, consciously take the call to say that we're going to crack the tough market first, and then we're going to scale out, right? So amazing. So scaling operations must have come with its own set of challenges, right? Like you started off in the Northeast, today you're doing more than 3 lakh deliveries. What's that journey been like, and what's been your biggest sort of wins and challenges in the recent years with respect to scaling ops?
Yeah, so it's been a bunch of ups and downs, right? But like ideally, all pointing up. If you look at a grand scheme of things, so whenever we've done something new, I think what we've done is we've been able to keep our ears very close to the ground, understand what is happening, how can we quickly learn and improve from the first iteration, and then we've been subsequently able to add stuff to the way that we monitor, build processes and monitor processes, right?
Yeah.
So when we moved out of Northeast, obviously there was a transition to be made, because for all the things about Northeast, we were very comfortable there, right? And when we had to move, and then we realized that there are other places which also have their problems, which just don't get manifested as deeply because there are a lot of folks operating in that space. So there was a movement to Northeast, and there was this expansion from doing just intracity to intercity. Then there was this expansion very recently into hyperlocal businesses. So it's about a 2-year old thing where we do like on-demand orders, right? So where there's no delivery hub where people congregate. In fact, we don't even meet our delivery executives. We don't know, they don't know who we are. They don't have any place to reach out to us apart from the application that we have, right? And that, like doing that has been a very interesting thing, right? And when you spoke of recent wins and recent challenges, I think that's near the top of my mind. 2-year old, we were able to scale to 50, 60,000 deliveries a day. And that happened purely without any feet on street on the ground. There were obviously some hub managers, some fleet managers on the ground, but there was no one going on and hiring people. We just had an app out there, people could sign up. We had to do a bunch of KYC related things on that, and importantly, build trust both ways. We can trust this new person who's coming in, right? Because they are still carrying food, they're carrying some precious items, and so on. And secondly, they can trust us because we have to pay them. We have to ensure that if we're paying on distance, if the distance measures are right, if we're giving a particular rate card with incentives and the incentives are calculated correctly. So getting that two-way trust engine going was actually quite critical. And actually, like a bunch of things that we have to do on the ops product side in general, I believe rely on this two-way trust, right? And maybe subsequently we'll come to some of those things as well. But I think that was very exciting because we took on a very new business dimension, and we said that we have skills to be able to deliver. It was an enormous tech challenge to be able to say that you're getting a real-time order. You have to figure out who amongst the 1,000 people on the ground is the right person to give this order to, and that has multiple parameters to it.
Yeah.
And then you subsequently govern that the order reaches the customer in time and all that. So it's that's been a very exciting journey.
So, any interesting, incidents or any interesting challenges on the ground, peculiar to things that you don't normally expect, right? Like you launch in a particular area, you're like, okay, these are the SPs we're going to follow. But any interesting stuff that you came across that and which posed an interesting challenge for you on the product side?
There's quite a lot. For example, I was telling you about people don't need to act like I don't need to meet a delivery executive while signing that person up, right? So that was one of the core principles that we had in mind, saying we're not going to set up onboarding centers in cities, right? That's not a cost that we want to bear. So therefore, we will build an all application-based onboarding flow. So someone would just come in, log in, we will do their KYC, subsequently do the KYC check passing, then we will let them in, right? And when we started it, we were very confident about it, right? And then we started realizing that people find loopholes around this stuff.
Yeah, they try to game the system.
Yeah, so people would take, so KYC check was essentially photo being checked on the Aadhaar versus your face. There was the Aadhaar check itself, right? We're reading some data from Aadhaar. So we had people pasting their photo on someone else's Aadhaar and then uploading that as the Aadhaar, right? There were also cases where there were online Aadhaar generators apparently. People were using that to get exactly their photo on the Aadhaar, all the information that they wanted. So this was a nice race in a way to be playing. And, So what happens is that people get through, right? If I let you in and you want to do some fraud, right? For whatever reason, maybe that particular day it's been bad for you. You need some money or whatever. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna pick up a largish food order, for instance, right, or a fashion order, and then you're like, okay, this maybe I can just sell this off, right? Or you just don't go to the customer. Now the customer side experience is horrible because for them the item's been picked up, it's on its way. Sometimes they get a notification saying your order has been delivered while they're obviously waiting for it to come, right? And then like a platform, a marketplace would intervene and say, okay, I'll get you another order. But for the customer, that's another half an hour, 45 minutes of waiting for no reason, right? So we have to stop these things. And if we said, okay, if we do KYC, then we'll at least like not have the same riders come in and do it stuff again and again. But it was a nice little game to be playing to see how people take uh, take something, and then when they really wish to game the system, I think the collective intelligence of like country is massive, right?
Yeah, and it's amazing how when you start building out these products, people try to game it in ways that you hadn't imagined.
Exactly.
And then you've got to get cracking on, okay, now how do we stem this bleed?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, right? Your ears close to the ground because you can't just sit in a room and say, I have built something that really works for me, right? And empathy, how much empathy we have towards the end user, the delivery executive in this case, we've not been brought up that way, right? We've had a more privileged life for sure, right? So we don't know what happens in their life and what governs their decisions. So for us to say, no, I've done something, and basis my experience, this is all fully foolproof, is slightly naive, I would say, right? You have to, at least at the start, be very, very close to what's happening and sort of be very willing to acknowledge a failure if it's happened.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And serving these different audiences. On one side, you're building for the customer. On the other side, you're building to enable users on the street, teams on the street. How does that paradigm? What is the interplay like? Do you think of that as completely a separate sort of this thing? Where do the lines cross?
See, for us, all of these people are our users, right? So, and it's very clear that we have to optimize for user experience. We have to display that user empathy. We have to think from their perspective and make sure the product is adding value to their lives. So, how we manage the diversity in all of this is by typically having separate teams that look at this, right? Of course, at certain levels, you have to do context switching. You don't have that freedom anymore to only focus on one thing. But we understand that managing all of these different diverse stakeholders for one person is likely to be complex. So you try to keep some of the teams segmented. It also keeps them like very focused on the problem at hand.
Got it. Makes sense. What is the one learning that you would want to, or any, what is the nugget of wisdom that you would like to share with product managers who are in the earlier stages building internal tooling for internal ops teams where ops plays a critical role in the business?
Correct. Building product for ops team is a high risk, high reward proposition. I'll explain why I say that. Because I have noticed, like I've also built some products for external users, right? I have noticed that when you're building internal products, your access to the users is unprecedented, right? You have just like you can walk there anytime, you can get their feedback on something. It comes with their demands being more exacting, right? They would very clearly want know what they want, or they would specify it, and you have to build it according to what they want, right? And if you don't do a good job, it could lead to a very vicious circle, right? Where the product believes that I built something that the tech should be that ops should be using. Ops believes that hey, these guys don't build anything which is worthwhile. And then that becomes like a thing which is very hard to undo. So I think my advice would be that we have to work very closely with the folks. We have great user access, right? So we need to capitalize on that. We don't need to transform the way they do things immediately, right? No one likes, because people are busy, right? If I am an ops manager, I have to take care of my daily routine, right? And daily routine will have 100 fires that will come up. All of these will be small in nature, but they require mind share, right? So if you want to give me something transformative, my first reaction would be, hey, this is just too much for me to take, right? Why do I need to do this? You have to work from a very evolutionary perspective. You need to understand the revolution that you want to bring. It's not going to happen immediately. It has to happen step by step. So the first thing that you do is you try to replicate what they currently have. They might have an Excel dashboard that they use, right, or something that they're using to track. You need to be able to replicate that, give them something more real time, slightly better, before doing, okay, if I were in their place, this is what I would do, right? Because you're not in their place right now.
Yeah.
You don't understand the small fires, you don't understand all the things that they're fighting. First, you turn that vicious circle into a virtuous one, right? And then I think together the team can do wonders.
Wow, that's great advice. That's awesome advice, and it rings so true from everything that I've seen in operations, in on the product side, to not expect a transformation and not to really empathize with the user and to understand their worldview, a day in their life, the kind of challenges they face, and then slowly start iteratively working towards that transformation that you eventually foresee or that you would like to
Right.
enable.
So I'll give you a very recent example, right? So on one of our operating arms, we had something called an action file on a daily basis that we were looking at automating. Right? So one of the things that we had done. So while the action file is very useful for the ops team, if a central person were to look at it, they would look at not that individual action file. They'd look at like various cuts of it and like what's happening and try to get a scorecard out of it, right?
Yeah.
So you would approach that problem as a core product person and say, hey, like, I don't care about actions. I want to do that dashboard so that people can drill down and see what to do. But that's not what the ground is used to, right? They're used to having like these rows that they action upon individually. Maybe once or twice a day they look at the scorecard. But if you can't make the scorecard front and center. So that's how we approached it. We said we will keep the look and feel of all of this nearly precisely what it is.
Yeah.
And gradually we will start making some changes. And that's like it's only a week or two old, but we've seen some really good feedback coming from the ground, right? And that really helps get both teams confidence in each other, right? Because as a product team, also it can be very frustrating. See, I built something very useful, but the ops are not using it. They still go back to the Excel that they have, right? So you need to acknowledge that all the grandiose dreams that you might have, they start with step one. You don't put that entire thing on day zero.
Yeah. What do you think are the challenges that ops heavy businesses today face as they scale? What are the biggest challenges or barriers to scaling for ops heavy businesses today from where you are, your vantage point today?
Got it. See, I think I have a rubric that I use. I don't know how precise that is, but I believe that every 5x scale, the way you do things change, right? So if you currently, let's say, run 5 locations for a particular business, you would be okay with taking some decisions centrally and all that, right? When you get to 25, you will have to decentralize. At 125, you will have to create regional teams and all that stuff, right? So at every 4 to 5x, there is a change that happens, right? And it's not just a current challenge in ops, in my opinion. I think it's a general challenge. If you are a high growing ops business, while you design processes which are according to you gold standard, while you work towards ensuring that they are replicated properly, you need to be very nimble and be cognizant of the fact that the next 5x scale up is approaching, and that would mean something very, very different in terms of how you operate.
Yeah.
So you have to be very set in your ways in terms of saying this is the process we will follow. But at the higher level to that, you have to be very flexible in your ways, saying this process is not forever, right? Today, this process is completely in stone, but it's not forever, and that is the challenge that people face. Right? It is just about crossing each threshold one by one as it comes.
Yeah, and for a startup, that journey, the pace at which you keep hitting those milestones of 5x and then 5x is so much faster, and that's when I think it becomes challenging, but also very exciting for folks like us from the startup industry that keep changing gears.
Right.
Yeah, awesome. And what do you think is going to be the impact of AI on the operations landscape? What do you think? How will the landscape change, or how will? Is there anything that you think of today when you look at the new AI capabilities coming up? Any early ideas on how you think that will impact? How will solutioning change?
Yeah, so I think there is right now, for instance, if you I'll just go back to the hub manager example, right? Where you are a hub in charge, or I'm a hub in charge, right? I have like 2,000 shipments in this particular hub. I need to know which are the ones that need to be actioned right now, because either the customer's been waiting for a long time, right? Or if I don't get it in the hands of the customer, I need to send it back to the seller, and the seller will then be waiting for a long time. So all of these have time time frames in which these tasks have to be accomplished, right? Or there's been some critical escalation and that needs to be dealt with. Um, there there are things that we do right now, which obviously we have to understand the patterns behind as product and tech people, right? And then bring those up to the surface, right, for the hub manager to take action on. Now, I think with AI, like a bunch of this stuff can be automated, right? And it doesn't then need to depend on one person's analytical ability to say, this is the pattern that I've identified, right? Because then pattern identification, A, becomes automatic and B, becomes more accurate over time.
Yeah.
And that's what we need, right? As I was saying, people are busy, right? They need to, once they get their time from these fires that they're fighting, they want to know exactly these are the 10 things to do, right?
Yep.
If you give them this elaborate thing saying, please figure out which are the 10 things that you have to do, then that's not helpful. I think AI can do a very good job in terms of surfacing, here are the top 10 actions that you need to do. Because from where you are right now, this is the best bang for the buck, right? So that's how I'm looking at it.
Makes sense. Makes total sense. So, a lot of interesting points that you brought up about ops not having the time or the bandwidth to, for example, jump in, do analysis, figure things out. They want to know, what is my immediate action point, and they need to be, they have to enable systems that let them know what they need to act on at any given point of time, right? And that's exactly what Locale does, and you'll be integrating soon with Locale. I'd love to get your view on what intrigued you about Locale, and how do you think Locale will add value to make teams more proactive, and what is the importance of being proactive, within the industry?
Yeah, like being proactive is everything here. Essentially, we are on the hook for delivering great customer experience, right? As an ops team, whether the customer is an internal customer or an external client, but customer experience comes from ensuring that the SLAs are met, right, and in most cases surpassed. And that will only happen if we understand where the SLAs might fail and what we have to do to be able to ensure that that risk is mitigated, right, or completely nullified. So that's where I think tools like Locale come in, right, where there is the right kind of alerting system in place, there's the right kind of alerting ladder also in place, right? So if someone's supposed to act on something and they've not actioned upon it, do I, as their manager, get called in, right? And at what time do I get called in? So the ability to set some of these rules, get the alerts flowing in the right direction, and then to be able to go back and then monitor, saying if Amit got 100 alerts, how many of them did he action upon, and how many of them did he action upon in time? That adds a lot of measurability to the ops team's performance, right? And both, like if you combine all of this, I think this could be a very interesting tool for us.
And that's that has been our learning from the market as well, that there is a desperate need for an observability tool for operations where they're able to observe where things are breaking, who is taking care of that problem, are they being able to take care of it, what's the time to resolution, all of that. And like you mentioned, being able to track and have visibility on ops performance, teams performance, people performance, etc. Right? Awesome. So thank you for taking the time. I have so many different questions, even from our conversation that just happened. There's more conversations that are, questions that are going off in my head. But in the interest of time, I'll wrap this up. But I would love to continue, having more conversations with you.
Yeah.
So much learning around enabling ops and how to think of it. So much more to learn from you. And thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure.